What if a massive tech company suddenly went bankrupt? Well, in 2001, the Enron Corporation, one of the top companies in the world, suddenly went bankrupt. The Enron Company, headed by Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling, was a prominent energy company in the late 1990s. But due to illegal accounting practices, the Enron Corporation filed for bankruptcy after the Securities and Exchange Commission exposed the company. How did such a fraud happen? Well, in 1985, the Houston Natural Gas Corporation merged with InterNorth Incorporated, a Nebraska-based energy company, to form Enron. While selling natural gas, Enron stayed a medium-sized company with respectable profits, but nothing exceptional. During the 1990s, the U.S. Congress passed a series of laws that banned the sale of natural gas, so Enron shifted gears. Kenneth Lay, the CEO of Enron, hired a financial consultant named Jeffrey Skilling. Skilling changed the company in two major ways. He transformed Enron from a historical cost method of accounting to a market-to-market method of accounting. This was one of the tools that he used to commit the fraud. The other way that Skilling changed the company was by pushing the idea of making quick profits in a hyper-competitive workflow. As the shares of technology companies spiked, which formed the dot-com bubble, Enron branched out into multiple avenues. An online trading division, Enron Online, was launched during the dot-com boom, and by 2001, it was executing online trades worth about $2.5 billion a day. Enron was now one of the corporate leaders in the energy industry, with their market capitalization exceeding $60 billion at its peak. Unfortunately, the dot-com bubble began to burst, shrinking the profits of Enron by a massive margin. This forced them into a tight spot and ultimately started their path towards demise. In order to hide the diminishing profits from investors and shareholders, Enron imbues the market-to-market method of accounting and special purpose entity systems to hide losses and maintain the appearance of high profits. At the time, nobody thought anything shady was happening because the Arthur Andersen Financial Company, which was one of the top 5 financiers at the time, audited Enron. In 2001, Lay and Skilling transferred ownership of the company between each other. Skilling took over when Lay resigned, and Lay took over when Skilling resigned. As the year carried on, multiple economic analysts looked into Enron's financial statements, and they slowly caught on to the shady practices of the company. By the time October came around, Enron announced massive losses and billion-dollar profitable shareholder reductions. This shocked the world because Enron appeared to be one of the most profitable companies at the time. Alerted by the sudden announcement of these losses, the Securities and Exchange Commission investigated Enron's transactions in relation to the special purpose entities. During the investigation, details of the fraudulent activities surrounding Enron plummeted its stock prices, and in December 2001, the company filed for bankruptcy. Ultimately, the Enron fraud was fueled by the greed of the chairman and the propensity of lying to hide losses. When we think about these scandals, it's important to see things through a Christian worldview, and it can help build our faith. The overarching Christian principles that were broken in this scandal are honor, integrity, and truthfulness. Proverbs 11 verse 1 states that a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When Proverbs was written, a scale was used to determine how much money one had accumulated and one spent. Enron directly violated this idea by falsifying the balance of their company, undermining their integrity. By lying about their balance, Enron also deceived the entire world in regards to their profits. The Bible also says that the Lord detests a lying tongue, and this one seems pretty simple. Investors and employees within the company had trusted Enron with their money. Enron dishonored these individuals when they filed for bankruptcy, ruining the profits of those that had invested or held money in relation to Enron. The idea of greed and accumulating earthly treasures is also a Christian principle that got violated. Christians are told that their wealth comes from heaven, and we should not be storing up fleeting treasures here on earth. Greed also comes from a place of selfishness. Lay and Skilling encouraged an environment in which greed and selfishness was rampant. Their employees used malpractice to feed their greed and hurt others because of it. Ultimately, Enron broke numerous Christian principles, and the employees are also equally responsible. Some of the specific individuals that led to Enron's collapse was Kenneth Lay, the CEO of Enron, Jeffrey Skilling, the company's chief operating officer, Andrew Fastow, the company's chief financial officer, and Arthur Andersen LLP, the company's auditor and accountant. They all played pivotal roles in Enron's demise. As a CEO, Kenneth Lay was guilty for a wide verse of actions pertaining to the company's demise, rather than its specific action that he took. Lay promoted aggressive and unethical business practices, which created a toxic work environment for his employees. Lay had significant knowledge regarding the fraudulent activities happening within the company, but did not report them or seem to care. Lay himself oversaw the use of SPEs as a means to inflate the company's profits and minimize the appearance of loss. Jeffrey Skilling, who switched Enron's accounting practices, allowed Enron to mark down the projected profits of projects that they had just started, inflating the value of the company. If the assets that Skilling invested in the project didn't make the projected profit that he put down, he moved it to a branch of the corporation that was under the rug, where it wouldn't be noticed by investors or to the public eye. Therefore, none of Enron's losses were reported. Skilling also encouraged the use of SPEs to further manipulate the value of the company assets. Andrew Fastow covered most of the fraudulent activities that happened. Fastow carried out the use of SPEs, or special purpose vehicles, to create off-balance sheet partnerships. Enron would transfer some of its rapidly rising stock into these SPVs or SPEs in exchange for cash or note. The SPV would subsequently use the stock to hedge an asset listed on Enron's balance sheet. Enron would guarantee the SPV's value to reduce apparent counterparty risk. Fastow used these to hide Enron's billions of dollars in debt and losses. Oftentimes, Fastow dumped Enron's dirty money into SPs that he owned, hiding the debt in companies of his own creation. He has come forward and testified that he received some amount of profits through this method of fraud. One of the biggest reasons why the public didn't catch on to Enron's fraudulent activities was Arthur Andersen LLP. At the time, Arthur Andersen was one of the largest and most trusted firms in America. Sadly, the firm fell to the greedy schemes of Enron. Andersen failed to report and disclose information regarding Enron's egregious accounting practices. And on top of this, Andersen was found guilty of actively participating in Enron's plans by helping them conceal debt and falsify their reports. When the SEC began their investigation, Andersen is said to have shredded auditory documents in the firm, and it was forever ruined because of this. As a result of these actions, the SEC convicted Andersen with obstruction of justice. While these men were the bigger individuals and bigger players on the board in terms of carrying out the fraud, there's many lower level employees in other companies that Enron worked with that are also equally responsible. When it comes to a company-wide scandal, it only takes one affiliate company or one mid-level worker to report it in order to shut the entire thing down. There are cases in which employees kept their silence about Enron's shady practices out of fear for their job or insecurity that their voice would not be enough to create change in the workforce. Typically, the corporation that audits a company is responsible for keeping its partner in check. Well, in this case, the Arthur Andersen LLP was one of the co-conspirators in this fraud. And although the SEC conducted an investigation on Enron's partner affiliations, it was way too late. The SEC should have more thoroughly gone through Enron's accounting practices and noticed that these fraudulent activities were happening years before. Additionally, the board of directors at Enron, which is obligated to ensure that the company complies with laws and regulations, did not come forth and report Enron's malpractice. Lay and Skilling weren't the only individuals in the company that were aware of these activities. Other important officials within the company knew. Even the banks that Enron used to cash its money were not innocent. JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup aided Enron, using shadow-owned companies to loan millions of dollars to them. Such transactions allowed Enron to play them off as legitimate interaction between two companies, when in reality, it was just a loan from one major corporation to another. For example, in one email, a JP Morgan Chase banker wrote, "Enron loves these deals as they are able to hide funded debt from their equity analysts because they, at the very least, book it as deferred revenue, or better yet, bury it in their trading liabilities." At nearly every single level, internal and external influences in relation to Enron were aware of the malicious actions and failed to report them. The Enron Corporation scandal is one of the biggest in the history of America. It is the accumulation of greedy executives, dishonored bankers, and scared employees who failed to carry out their jobs properly. Analyzing the scandal is important because it changed the economics of America forever. After the Enron company fell, the US Congress implemented extra laws to prevent the same thing from happening again. The Enron company changed the world of economics forever, and I guess we have Skilling to thank for it.